Hi folks, Patrick Rail here. This is my solitaire war game Ironclads of the American Civil War. I want to do a sort of a light teach here, just to give you a sense of what's in the package and maybe get you started. So I've put up a kind of introduction video, so I won't go over the sort of whole game. I want to think about how it actually works, give you a sense of what the gameplay is about. So let's go to the rule book, and here is our menu. We'll walk through these briefly. A few basics just to get us going. You will, in 8 of the 9 scenarios, be playing the Union side against the Confederates. You are the player, and you're playing against the bot, which is the opposing player or the opponent. Your units are friendly units. Units of the other side, of the bot side, are the opposing units. And just remember that there are bot instructions that refer to the opposing side, and that, of course, would be the player. So if you're operating the bot, just remember that opposing always refers to the side that is not acting. A unit is anything that can fire at another unit, take a hit, or both. Usually this is a gun on an ironclad or a shore battery. When damage is inflicted on units, to take a hit is to mark a damage box on a unit. You can see some of these damage boxes on these gunships here. The generic term for any moving vessel is a ship. Gunboats are a type of ship with guns on them, unsurprisingly. And an ironclad is a type of that. There are other kinds like timberclads and cottonclads and other things like that. But usually the rulebook will speak of gunboats. Each scenario is going to tell you which ships you control, what your objective is, how to score victory points if you succeed. Generally speaking, you're going to be trying to move ships onto the board and use them to accomplish various objectives. Usually it means eliminating enemy units, which would be enemy gunboats or shore batteries, or moving your units off the board or to a particular place, that kind of thing. The rule set, this rule set here, is the basic rule set. The scenarios will add new rules to kind of add some wrinkles onto these. So this is a system that is designed to let you learn it gradually. And those additional, here they're listed as additional rules, but these collectively make up the standard rule set. So you've got the basic game, which is what's described in the rules here, and then you have the standard game, which are these additional rules that are added into each scenario. Easiest way to get going: go over the basic rules, start with the training scenario, and just work your way up. So that kind of gets us going here. Let us start and get right into the rules. First thing to look at is that for each scenario, you're going to have a map sheet and a play sheet. Let me just flip ahead for a minute and see if I could find. So here's island number 10. You're going to have a play sheet and a map sheet over here. The map sheet is going to have an action dice aid. It'll show you opposing guns, look something like this. So this is just to orient you on the map. You have different terrain types here. The most common ones you'll see are water. Gunboats can move through water without any trouble. And land. And of course, no boats can get on land, but the batteries and other units might be located on land. So here is a land hex with an opposing battery on it. If you see these symbols here on hexes, those are fixed assets. Most often they're light gray, which means they don't have a game function. They're just there to help orient you and help you sort of understand where things are on the map, where important points of interest might be. If they're in black, they may have an actual game function. Like if they're in black, the scenario might say, get a mortar boat to New Madrid, and that'll be in black to show that it has an actual game function. That's enough to get us going. On the play sheet, this is where you'll keep track of what's going on with your gunboats. You'll have a diagram for each of these ships. You'll have the scenario objective repeated here if there is any space for it whatsoever. You might find scenario reminders and special rules here as well. And you have a turn record track down here to help you keep track of where you are in the game. Here's a basic gunboat. We'll talk more about gunboats in a minute, but just to give you a sense of what's going on here, you've got diagram. Here's the boat, and it has 6 sections. And as you can see, that means you can orient it in a hex so that it's pointing towards one hex side. So for now, I think that's all I want to share with you. We'll go over gunboats in a little bit more detail later on. So let's talk about basics here. The thing you're going to be dealing with a lot are guns. Guns like these in opposing batteries. Here's one gun just to sort of show you how this works. So this is one gun. It starts, the number on the dice faces here, that is the strength/range of the gun. So the gun has a strength of 3 and a range of 3. It has 3 hitboxes underneath, which means that if these are all marked, it now has a strength of 2. If those are marked as a strength of 1, if those are marked, the gun is eliminated and can't fire. So I'll talk more about how the guns fire in a minute. Guns on gunboats look like this. So once again, a gun is just a die. And here we have 6 sections on the gunboat. This section has a gun of strength range 3 that can take 2 hits. This section has a gun of strength/range 2 that can take 3 hits. This front section, rear section, back section, they do not have guns on them. That's why they're in gray. And they can each take 2 hits. Each gun has a range which is equal to its strength. So if this were a gun in a battery here with a strength range of 2, that means its range is 2 hexes in every direction. And one thing you should know is that guns can fire over land to get to water, over water to get to land, that kind of thing. There's nothing, land and water does not interrupt their field of fire automatically. Some guns do have a constrained field of fire. This is often the case with guns on gunboats. And so this diagram is just to give you a sense of how this diagram, 6 sections, is going to sit on a hex, and each section is oriented, of the gunboat, is oriented toward a different hex face, a different adjacent hex. Okay, so we've got front, left, back left, front right, back right. So on a gun, many guns like this, the generic or the default for an opposing battery is that guns fire 360-degree field of fire. If you have a gun on a gunboat, or there's some other scenarios or situations in which an artillery battery might have a constrained field of fire, but the generic thing for a gun on a gunboat is that its field of fire is constrained by the hex in front of it, the 3 away, and then those adjacent to that, on and out, right? So this gun does not have a 360-degree field of fire. It can only fire in the forward direction, but that direction still is broad, okay? And the way you do that is this hex, and then those 3. It's going to go out on these lines. So if this had a range of 12, this would go out 12 hexes, and all that would be within the range of fire, field of fire. Talk more about gunboats in a minute. Now, how does that strength and range work? The strength of a gun is also its range, generically. And what the strength means is that in hexes that are adjacent to the gun, the hit value of the hex is the same as the strength of the gun. Now, the hit value of a hex is the number that this gun has to roll, the value it has to roll on its shot roll in order to inflict a hit on a unit in that hex. So in order for this gun to inflict a hit on a unit in this adjacent hex, it needs to roll and roll a 2 or a 1. Missed. You can see how these are 1s. That's because they're 2 away. So what you do is you go, that's a 2, that's a 1, 2, 1. You know, you can just count out the range. So if you had a 4 range gun, it would be 4, 3, 2, 1, something like that. Right? So you see how that works? You get the strength and the range, or the highest value applies to the immediately adjacent hexes, and then it's going to go down 1 for each hex thereafter. So here we have a forward-facing gun on a Union gunboat. This is the same field of fire that we saw in the last illustration. This time I've added the hit values of these hexes. So for this gunboat to hit a target in this hex, it would have to roll a 1. To hit one in this hex, it would have to roll a 2 or a 1. 3, 2, or 1, right? Now, how does all this work when you actually fire a gun? So we saw here that we have a gun with strength range of 3, and then it can be weakened if it takes hits. And we have this 2x number. So let's explore what these things mean. Each roll of a die is a shot. It may be more than 1 die. The gun might tell you to roll multiple dice. This gun rolls 2 dice for each shot. This one rolls 3 dice for each shot. Dice are rolled in shots. So a gun will tell you how many dice it rolls on each shot. This gun only rolls 1 die on each shot. This one 2, this one 3. The reason why that's important is that it makes it, the more dice, the easier it is to hit. But 1 shot, no matter how many dice you roll and how many successes you roll on it, 1 shot is going to produce a maximum of 1 hit. The difference is, if you're rolling more dice, it's more likely that you will create a success. So if we were rolling, let's say our hit value was 2, right? So we're going to roll 3 dice and we're looking for a 2. And this is our roll, 5, 1, and 2. Our hit value was 2. Well, we got that's a success. That 1 is a success because it's equal to or lower than the hit value. That's a miss. Each of these is a success, which means this shot, this 1 roll of the dice for the gun, can produce 1 hit. In this instance, it wouldn't create 2 hits because this is 1 shot. 1 shot, 1 hit. So think of it that way. So in this instance, this gun fires with a strength of 3. It makes 1 shot roll of 1 die. This one makes a shot roll of 2 dice. Now, if you remember the 2 times here, let's see what that means. 2 times means that when the gun fires, it takes 2 shot rolls, right? So this is the shot. This is the number of times you take a shot. Each shot can produce 1 hit maximum. And so 2 shots could produce a maximum of 2 hits. In our instance before, we were rolling 3 dice and it produced 2 successes, but 1 shot, because it's 1 shot. In this instance, if we rolled, let's say we rolled them again, and let's say that was our first roll. Our first shot roll has produced 2 successes. Since there's at least 1 success, that inflicts 1 hit. Then we're going to roll again. Let's say we're looking for 2s again. Oh, that time I missed. But if I had done that, or if I'd even done that, my second shot has created 1 or more successes, so 1 hit will be inflicted. Okay, so the 2 times or 3 times or whatever it is going to tell you the number of shots a gun takes. They can be on the same target or a different one. The number of dice tells you the number of dice you roll on a shot roll. And the value on the die tells you its strength and range. so you can figure out what the hit value is of the hex that you're targeting. So just to explain this, because I think this is kind of conceptually could be confusing. Let's say we have a gun that fires its shot roll consists of 3 dice. Okay? Let's say the hit value it's looking for is 4 because it's firing into an adjacent hex. We roll them, looking for 4s. Beautiful. 2 successes, but this is 1 shot. So it's going to produce 1 hit even though it's got 2 successes. If the gun looked like this, it takes 3 shots of 1 die each rather than 1 shot of 3 die. This means that it can inflict 1 hit per shot up to 3. So each of these dice now can be its own hit. So if we had this roll, that one misses, but that one succeeds and it's a hit because the shot is only of 1 die. This one too is a hit because it's a shot of only 1 die. So this roll would inflict 2 hits here, but would only inflict 1 hit if it was that kind of gun. Okay? So there's a distinction between the number of dice you roll on a shot and the number of shots that you can possibly take. If it doesn't say anything before the gun, it's a 1 time. If it says 2 times, 3 times, or more, that's the number of shot rolls that it takes for each fire action. So we have a couple examples of how the bot would fire its gun, which shows these gun principles. Here we have our Confederate battery. Its strength and range are 2. So this Union Gunboat A is within range. It's 2 hexes away. The hit value, or the hit value of the adjacent hexes would be 2. Well, this one's 2 away, so now it's 1. So you just count out 2, 1. The hit value of this is 1. So this gun has a shot of just 1 die. In order to score a hit on this target in this hex, it would need to roll a 1. If the Union Gunboat was here, it would need to roll a 2. So here's an example of a shot that consists of 2 dice, 1 time. It's going to take 1 shot, but each shot consists of 2 dice. Remember, our hit value is 1, so we're looking for 1s. We missed. If it was like this, say we got 2 successes. 1 shot, 1 hit. Still only inflicting 1 hit. In this example, we've got the gun firing 2 shots. Now the Confederate bot is going to fire them both. This is the only target in range. It's going to fire them both here. So let's see the first one. We're looking for 1s. At least 1 success means 1 hit will be inflicted. And this one missed. So we took 2 shots, but only 1 inflicted a hit. Now here we have a situation where we have a Union gunboat, and this gun that is going to fire 3 shots consisting of 2 dice each. Those are our 2 dice. Now these shots can be split up. It can fire 2 at this one, 1 at this one, all 3 at this one, and you can choose. So you roll 1, then you can choose a different target if you want. This is when it is the player operating the gun. The bot works a little differently. We'll get to that. Well, let's say this gun wants to target Confederate Gunboat A. Its strength range is 2, so that means the hit value of that hex is 2. Let's take our first shot. We have 1 or more successes, so we're going to inflict 1 hit on A. Let's say that was it. Now A, we just did away with it. We don't want to fire it anymore. We're going to fire the next 2 here at B. Now the hit value is reduced to 1 because it's 1 further hex away. 2 strength, 1 strength. So we've used 1 of our shots. Now we're going to use the second, looking for 1s. miss. And we're going to do it again. Another miss. So this gun on one fire action has taken 3 shots. They can be at the same or different targets. When it's your turn, you choose. So here are the steps laid out for each fire action. Every time a gun fires, all you have to do is follow this little script here, and I'll walk you right through. When a battery takes hits, you'll mark them off. You'll start at that top row. When that top row is filled, the gun's strength is reduced, and it's now firing at strength range 2. Those are X'd off. You're now firing at 1. Gunboats, we'll talk more about that in just a minute, but gunboats also take hits. They take hits on their gun sections where these boxes are. I'll show you how that works in just a quick second. Okay, so we've gone over guns, we've gone over how they fire, how to read them. Let's see how this works when these guns are on gunboats. Most frequently, you're going to be operating gunboats with guns on them. Sometimes there will be opposing gunboats against you, so it's important that we get this right. This is just reminding us that the way a gunboat sits in its hex, its orientation in the hex, is going to correspond to the 6 sections of the gun. So front face, front left, back right, front right. Where the gun is positioned in the hex is going to tell you which guns are pointing where. So this is always going to be the front, always going to be the back. Let's look at a few gunboat designs. This gunboat has 6 outer sections. 1 will face each hex side. Each of 5 sections has a gun in it. Each of these guns fires a shot consisting of 1 die, 1 time. There's no 1x, which the default is always 1 time, unless you see like 2 times or something. So, boom, 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 we've got 5 guns. This gun has a strength range of 3, and this section can take 2 hits. This one, strength of 2, section can take 3 hits. Here we have 3 hit boxes on the front section for a 3 gun and a weak back with no gun. When there's gray, that means there's no gun there, and you won't be able to fire into that field of fire. I'll show you how that works in a minute. This gunboat, you'll see these a lot. It too has 6 sections, but the difference is the 2 side sections are combined. And so these side sections are going to each have 2 shots per fire action, and on each shot you're going to roll 2 dice with a strength range of 3. The front gun is just like this one up here. It's only going to fire 1 time on a fire action, and the shot will consist of 1 die. This is a little funky. This is a monitor style boat, and it's hard to see here. I corrected this in the later edition. These are dashed lines. So what that means is that this gun shares a field of fire with both of its side sections. It's on the back, but because it's turreted, it's like the monitor. Its gun can spin around. It can fire in every direction but front. And this is the way it was with the real monitor. There was a smokestack right there for the steam engine, and it couldn't fire forward. But we have the conjoined sections. So it still has 2 sections on each side. They're just joined up. I'll show you why that's important in a minute. Here's a timber-clad flotilla. You'll see this in an early scenario. That's been fixed. And what we have here is a gun mounted on the front that shares a field of fire with front left and front right. The gun is 3 strength range and will fire 2 dice on a shot roll and take 1 shot per fire action. So let's think a little bit about what fields of fire look like with gunboats. Super basic. Let's say we had a gun on the front section, and only the front section of a Confederate gunboat. Its field of fire are these hexes. Super straightforward. The hex in front, the 3 away, and then you just trace those lines out. Let's look at this example. So we have a gun on the front and a gun on the back. There's 6 distinct sections. This diagram just shows you the gun on the front commands this field of fire. It's a 2 gun. And the gun on the back commands this field of fire. Pretty straightforward. Here's a gun with 6 sections, 2 on each side. So each of these is going to have its own field of fire, but they can overlap. So this front left gun, that's in its field of fire, that's in its field of fire, that's in its field of fire. That too is in its field of fire. That's a hex that it shares with the back left gun's field of fire. So when you're maneuvering your boat around and you have a situation like this, you might want to be away from the target just so you can get 2 shots on it. I hope that's clear. Here's an example of how targeting might work. So here we have a Confederate gunboat with 6 guns, 1 on each section. Each one is a 3 strength. It will fire 1 shot per fire action consisting of 1 die. Strength range 3. So here's our gunboat. It's pointed forward. The forward gun, B, is going to target this hex. The hit value of this hex for this gun is 3 because it's adjacent and its strength range is 3. Target A is going to be fired at by the front left gun, strength range of 3. So we go 3, 2. The hit value of this target, or of this hex, is 2. And this one, front right gun, is going to hit into this hex. You can see here, strength of 3. So the hit value here would be 3. Let's look at some other examples here. This is just going to show you, here's a Union gunboat with a 2 gun in every section. It's just showing you all the gray hexes are the field of fire. And we have these overlapping fields of fire because the guns share some fields of fire. This is a gunboat with, it's like this one we saw on the previous page, 2 conjoined sections on the side. This is the value of that. This gun here can fire into either one of these. It shares a field of fire, which means that all these hexes are in the field of fire of this one gun. Okay? When the sections share a gun, the gun has the field of fire of both sections. Now there's no overlap because there's only one gun here. So you're not going to see overlapping fields of fire. They sort of automatically overlap in a way. Here's a monitor style boat, right? So we saw one of these kinds of things, no front gun, but there's one gun mounted in the back. But because these sections are joined, this gun has the field of fire of all of these orientations. So here, it wouldn't be able to fire into its front field of fire because it doesn't have a gun there and the diagram doesn't permit it. Every other hex is a viable target. Now, what happens when gunboats take fire? How do those hitboxes get marked? They're going to take fire on the section that is facing the fire. If there are 2 sections facing it, then you get to select the section to be hit. Okay. So here we have an example. Let's see, we've got a Confederate battery, strength range 3, and there are 3 targets. There's Union gunboat A, B, and C. Strength range 3, if it landed a hit on the gunboat here, so that the way that gunboat is oriented in the hex, only its back right section was in the field of fire That's where the fire came from. So this gunboat A will take that hit on its back right section. I'll show you what that looks like on a gunboat in a second. In the case of both B and C, the hits can be taken on more than one section because there's a viable path the shot might have taken, right? The front left and back left sections of gunboat B are both in the field of fire of this gun. They're equal distance apart. They both face that gun. So you would choose here which section to take it on. Same thing here. C, front or front left would take the shot. You decide. If your section has taken all the hits that it can, then the shot will start going through and the hit will start hitting other things. So each gunboat has engines and crew. And when the shot goes through, you'll have to take that hit on either engines or crew. So when it's the human player, you'll choose. Now you can see that on the engines, it says 2 MP under that hit, 2 MP, 1 MP. That's a movement point. So the number of movement points a gunboat has is designated here. So if another shot would be taken here, now the gunboat is reduced to 1 MP. In the basic game, if you lose all your engines, the gunboat cannot move. That is probably going to be bad news for your success possibility, but it will not automatically lose you the scenario. Crew is something else you can take a hit on. Now in the basic game, don't worry about that. That's for a little bit more advanced rule. Crew casualties. But if all of these shots get taken, the gunboat is dead. That's why you have a skull and crossbows there. It's eliminated. If there are no humans to run it, it can't possibly succeed. Whereas if it has no movement, it might still be able to succeed. So let's take a look at a few examples of how gunboats might take fire. So you see this gunboat here has got 2 hits on its front left section. If it takes another hit on this section, it'll have to take it on engines or crew because there's no more hit boxes left. In this instance, we got the red X here. That shows that the gunboat took a hit from its front right. So this gunboat has taken 2 hits to its left side. Those hits could have come from front left, back left, one of each. Because these sections are joined, you're going to take the hits over here. When bot-operated guns take hits, you need instructions for how the bot would take hits. The principle is going to be, if there's a choice of sections on which to take the hit, you're going to choose the section that has the most hit boxes left unmarked. So in this instance, before these marks or these hits came, this one had 4 open boxes and 3. So the first hit would be taken here. Thereafter, you're going to, when it's even, so it would be 3 and 3 now, you're going to distribute them alternately. So the second hit would go to the front. Those are the basics of guns, firing shots, gunboats, taking hits, right? That is kind of the mechanical core of this game. Now let's look at the game turn itself. It's very, very easy. You're going to have a player turn and an opponent turn, and then you're going to check to see if the scenario ends. When it's your turn, you're going to move your ships using action dice. Now the basic system for action dice, the scenario will tell you how many to roll in the basic game. Let's say you're going to roll 3 dice. 1, 2, and 4. You just look at this little table, and this is replicated on map sheets or play sheets. And you say, well, I've got 1 move action. This 2 die is going to give me a move or a fire. This 4 is going to give me a fire. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a boat on the map, and I simply assign that dice to that boat. And now that boat is going to either move or fire. I have that option. A ship can perform more than 1 action, but it cannot repeat an action. But it's okay to use the same value die on the same ship as long as you're using a different action. So 3 is move or fire. I could use one 3 to move and then the second 3 to fire. That's totally legit. I just couldn't fire twice. So if I had a 4 and a 5, the 4 would let me fire, but the 5 I would have to use that for a move and I couldn't fire. Can't repeat an action. If you can't use a die, you lose it. If you have an entire roll that you can't use, this might happen at the beginning of the game. You'll get all these fire actions before you have a gunboat on the board. Then you just re-roll, so that's super easy. On these 5 and 6, we can move and fire. You can't split them from ship to ship. It has to one die per ship. And it's okay, though, if you only take one of those actions because you can't take the other one. So that is your turn. I'll go over what the move and how we've seen what firing looks like. I'll go over movement here in a second. Then we go to the opponent turn. The first thing that's going to happen is if the bot has any units that can move, they will move. They'll move according to bot instructions. We don't have to worry about that in the basic game. That's introduced in a later scenario. And then all bot guns are going to fire. Now, by default, these batteries are going to fire 360-degree field of fire. Their range and strength are indicated on the gun. And here's the thing. They're going to fire, because this is the bot, because this is the opposing player, when they fire, they're going to fire at all targets in their range, no matter how many there are. So here is a Confederate gun of strength 4. Sorry, that's a little hard to read. If you were playing this, if a player were playing this, it would have one shot with 1 4 die. In this instance, though, it's going to fire here and here. It's going to fire everything it can. This Confederate gunboat, this single gun on the back right will fire here, and if it can reach, it'll fire here as well. So when the bot goes, each bot gun fires at every target in its field of fire. If this was a 3 times gun, if this gun fired 3 shots at strength 4, 3 shots here, 3 shots here, right? Each bot gun fires at every target in its field of fire. Then the last thing we're going to do is check for scenario end. You'll have instructions in the scenario that will tell you how much time you have and what the conditions for ending the scenario are. So that's the game turn. Let's look at these actions. I think the fire action we've pretty much covered. The move action is one that we haven't done quite so much. We know that each turn you're going to get movement points. That's based on the status of your engines. And you can use those movement points to move forward, that is in the direction that you're facing in. The direction that you're facing in, that your front face is pointing toward, a number of water hexes equal to your movement points. You can change face one time before or after moving 60 degrees. So you can change one face left or right, then move. You can go move again, then change it at the end. You can only do it once per movement point spent, but you can do it before or after you've actually moved the hex. Additionally, you can move through your own units, not opposing units. So if that was Confederate, you couldn't do this. But you can move through your units. You just can't end in the same space. So 1 gunboat, 1 hex is the general rule. So that is the move action. We now know how to move. We've seen how to fire. And we basically covered the game. You can start to play at this point. So these are all the additional rules that are going to be introduced in the scenarios. And here's your first scenario will be your training mission. That'll be the next thing that we look at. Thanks for watching.